So why do we need Google Analytics? I consider Google Analytics to be a basic, indispensable part of a website. If you build a website, you need to have Google Analytics in it. It allows us to track our customers' activity from their initial post that they see on social media, maybe all the way through to our website, into our website, and all the way to purchase. So we can track that activity from post to purchase. And if we don't have Google Analytics installed, we may have the world's prettiest website, but we have no idea whether it's an effective website or not. And effective is what we're after here, right? So if you don't have Google Analytics on your website, you're truly flying blind. So I want to look at this in terms of three broad questions that Google Analytics can answer for us. There are many more questions it can answer. There's whole layers of more advanced that I'm not going to go into tonight. I'm going to do the primer, but this is very powerful information. This is basic information that you ought to understand about your site that can give you real insights into what's happening with your customers and with your website. The three questions: first, is my website getting traffic? Is there anybody out there? And without Google Analytics, you don't know the answer to that question. Second, how is that traffic getting to my website? Assuming I have traffic, where are they coming from? And if I know where they're coming from, that gives me insight into where should I be going to find even more customers. And third, once they come to my website, what are they doing once they get there? We want to know the behavior of our customers on our website. So these three key questions and some related kind of cousins, if you will, to them are really fundamental to our being able to design effective digital presences. Okay, so let's start by looking at the Google Analytics interface. And I warn you, Google designed this to present information, not necessarily to make it consumable. So when you go into your Google Analytics account, if it is already set up, this is more or less what you're going to see. And I want to focus in on some key areas here. First one being, the first one being over on the left side. These are drop downs that have all of the reports, the report links in them that we can create. So we're going to be making good use of that menu. And I'm going to focus in on the three middle ones: audience, acquisition, and behavior. Who's there? Where are they coming from? And what are they doing when they get to our site? Now, another thing we should pay attention to here is what website we're looking at, and that's up here where the red circle is, and this tells us that right now we're looking at the 21st Century Marketing website, 21cm.global, on what's called the main view. And the third thing we want to recognize is that the reports are always going to show up in this big area in the middle. So we control this on the left, and we get our results in the middle. Now, in that red circle, if I click in the area of that red circle, I'm going to get a drop down that looks like this, because I have quite a few different sites, not even all of them are showing in this account, because I manage quite a few different sites. And each of those different accounts in the left-hand column, Carmel Naturals, the demo account, which is actually a Google demo account, Granite Crete, Helping Pets Heal, these are all different accounts. And inside of them is a website. So right now I'm pointing this to the SICC, which is the Startup Investment and Community Capital Expo. And that website, it's actually siccmonterey.com. And then we're looking at, there are three different views of that website. And these views have been set up in a different process than I'll go over tonight. but we are going to be mostly looking at the SICC website main view as we go through here. Okay, moving on. Whoop, that's what we were looking at. First question, are we getting any traffic or is it lonely in here? If you are running a store, you just look out and you can see whether anybody's coming in the store, but it's not so easy with a website to see whether anybody's in there. Google Analytics is your window to that world. So we're here at the SICC, Startup Investment and Community Capital website main view. And we want to focus in on, oh, I keep going the wrong direction. There we go. We have our 5 different groups of reports on the left, and I want to start by focusing on the audience. So I'm going to click on audience, and that's going to bring us here to notice that when we click on audience, we get a whole list of different reports we can get underneath audience. We're going to look at a couple of those. First one being the overview. And the overview and understanding what we're looking at, it helps in the upper right-hand corner there where there's the light yellow circle. It's showing the dates that this report covers. So this report is from July 20th through July 26th. So it shows those 7 days. And the graph here shows how many users there were on our site each day from the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, 23rd, and so on. And so we had about 8 users on the 20th, and then that went up to, looks like about 18 on the 21st, dropped back to maybe 17 on the 22nd, 19 on the 23rd, and so on. So that tells us how much traffic our site is getting. And then down here on the bottom, it gives us some additional information. So this is how many visitors we had on the site each day. And the total number of users over that time period was 78. That's how many people were there. There were 67 new users. So Google can track whether somebody has been on your website before, and they'll give you that information. They'll tell you how many of the visitors to your site were new, first-timers, and how many of them were returners. So there were 11 returning users. It also tells us how many sessions there were. So a session, and there's a very specific definition for a session. If somebody goes to your website and spends some time and messes around in your website, looks at some different pages, etc., and then leaves, that's a session. If later in the day they come back to your site again, that's another session. So whether they're on your site for 10 seconds or a minute or an hour, that's one session. And if they come back after a period of time, return again, that becomes a new session. So this tells us there were 101 sessions. And it also gives us an interesting number. This is an important number called the bounce rate. Okay, the bounce rate tells us whether somebody came to our site, looked at one page, and left. That's the Google definition of bouncing, is if they come to our site and the only thing they do is look at a single page, whichever page they might have gone to. If they then leave without clicking on anything else, they bounced. And we can see from this that 3/4 of the people who arrived on the site only looked at one page. Now, I have seen worse bounce rates. I've seen bounce rates in the 90%. I've seen better bounce rates. I've seen bounce rates in the 50%. If you can get under 50% for a bounce rate, you're doing really, really well. 76%, I'm not happy with that as a bounce rate. That's something that I would want to look at. What's going on that they're only going to that one page? Now, another useful piece of information here is the average session duration. This is how long they spend on the site. It's how long between their first click that gets them to the site and the last click that takes them away from the site. And the average session duration here is 1 minute and 35 seconds. And as we'll see a little bit later, there's a very wide spread of how much time people spend on this site. But that's a number. Obviously, if you want to be effective, you want people to engage with your site, you would like the session duration to be high. You'd like the bounce rate to be low. You'd like people to be returning to your site. Okay, so that's the basic audience overview report. We know how many people have been to our site. We know how many of them are new. We know how many sessions they created. We know how long they were there on average, and we know how many of them came, conquered, and left. That is, came, looked at one page, and left. Okay, so now I want to move on. I want to stay with audience, but I want to go down to geo, because geo for geography is going to tell us where these users are coming from. And I'm going to focus in here on location. And in particular, we're going to start by looking at country. So where did all of these 78 users come from? Well, 68 of them came from the United States, 2 from Canada, 2 from Japan, 1 from Bangladesh, 1 from Germany, the UK, Sri Lanka, Russia, and Taiwan. So quite a variety of different countries that users came from. Now, if I'm working with a site where we're really only interested in United States visitors, or we're only interested more commonly in North American visitors, you can set up a filter that will filter out the folks from Russia, because they're only there to change your vote, and for most sites, you're not really concerned about whether somebody's coming from Russia or not. So you might want to filter them out, because that skews some of the other data in your site. Now we can also look at the location in terms of the city. So I've changed here to looking at city, and we can see the city that people came from. And note that 14, the largest single group, city was not set. That is, that information was not available in their browser information. So we don't know what city they came from. But for many others, we do know 7 came from Salinas, 7 came from Portland. By the way, these are 7 different users. 5 of those were new users. Initially, when I saw this, I was thinking that that was my web designer, because Anjika actually lives in Portland. And I thought, oh, she's skewing our data. But then I realized, no, this is 7 different users. So there are actually a fair number of people. So it must be Anjika and her friends who are coming and looking at the website. Is that the case, Anjika? Or do we have a following?
Could be. I don't really know.
If we do some drilling down, we could probably figure that out, but that'll be deeper than we'll drill tonight. 6 from Santa Cruz, that's good. 5 from Marina. Most of them are local here. 5 from San Francisco. Given that this is a startup investment expo, 5 from San Francisco is a very good thing. 2 from Toronto, 2 from Bunkyo City. I have no idea where that is. Anybody know where Bunkyo City is? It might be offshore. All right, so that's where our site visitors are coming from. Now, another thing we can do here, still looking at audience, but now looking at new versus returning users, we can see whether when people come back, do they behave differently than the first time they came. And if we look at this over here and we look at bounce rate, we can see that 85% of the new visitors bounced. They came, they saw one page, they said, ah, I'm leaving, I'm out of here, and left. But the returning visitors, only 58% looked at just one page. So the returning visitors are, not surprisingly, looking at more pages. In fact, on average, they're looking at 3.5 pages versus 1.2 pages that the first-time visitors were looking at. And you can see a huge difference if we go over and look at the average session duration. How long were they staying on the site? You can see that the returning users were there for 4 minutes and 17 seconds on average versus 13 seconds for the new visitors. So there's quite a bit of difference in behavior there. When people come back to our site, they're more engaged, they're spending more time on the site, they're looking more deeply into the site. So we might want to be reaching out to those returning visitors and seeing what else they might need from us. All right, now I'm going to move to behavior under, now this is still under audience. Audience behavior, I want to look at, we just looked at new versus returning users. Now I want to look at frequency and reach, because we can get a couple of other interesting answers here. One is, how many times is each visitor coming back to the site? So this column tells us that there were 67 sessions that only, 67 visitors that only were on the site once. 15 visitors that were on the site twice, so they came back for 2 sessions. And down here, there were 4 visitors who actually came back 15 to 25 times. So we've got some heavy users on the site and some very light users on the site, which gives us some things to pay attention to. What's going on with these 10 people are probably highly engaged people that we want to be paying attention to. Now there's a second column there that tells us how many page views each session had. So 81 sessions had a single page view. 41, I'm sorry. Yes. And you can see that there's a wide variety here in the number of page views. There were a large number of sessions here that had 5 page views, which is a fair number, and a bunch that are going to a lot of different pages in the site. Okay. Last item on audience, I want to look at engagement. And so this tells us, session duration here tells us how long was each session on the site. So there were 82 sessions that had 0 to 10 seconds they were on the site. So they were not there for very long. 3 sessions that were there for 11 to 30 seconds. That's still not very long. But note that we've got 2 sessions that were there for 181 seconds, which is 3 minutes, to 600 seconds, which would be 10 minutes, and 8 sessions where they spent 10 to 30 minutes on the website. Right? Again, tells us that there are some people coming to the website who are spending an enormous amount of time there. Okay. So that's our audience and learning about our audience on the website. So now that we know a little bit about our audience, we'd like to know where they're coming from, because of course, all roads lead to Rome. So first question is, how are they getting to my site? And now note that we're looking at not audience anymore, but we're looking at the acquisition group of reports. And this is the overview, the acquisition overview. and it's looking at how are people getting to our sites. So we've got 68 people, users getting there directly. And direct means they're typing the URL for our site into their browser and going straight from their browser to our site. There are 50 of them that are getting there via email. And that's a good thing because that tells us that our email campaign is having some effect. It's driving people to our site. There are 24 people who got there through organic search. Anybody know what organic search is and what the other kind of search is? You want to hazard a thought about that? So Google will list two kinds of search, organic search and paid search. Organic search is they type some search term into their browser and our website came up and they clicked on our website and went to it. Paid search would be if we were doing Google Ads and they typed in a search term and our ad popped up and then they clicked on that ad. That would be paid search. So organic search is good because that is in some sense free. And it says that some level of SEO is working for the site because we got a fair number of people from that. Remember, actually I can't, this data I think is a month. I think I changed the view from 1 week to 1 month. Whoop, come back here. All right, and social, how many people are coming to our site from our social posts? Kenneth, we gotta do something about this. We're not getting enough people from social, so we gotta work on that conversion there. Okay, so that's where our traffic is coming from. I want to drill a little more deeply into referral because referral has a particular meaning. That means that some other website had a link that sent them to our website. So we'd really like to know what website is doing that. And so I clicked on that and this is the report that comes up. And it tells us where our traffic is getting referred from. Now, not surprisingly, the largest amount is getting referred from startupmontereybay.com. That's our website, and it has a big banner on it that says, go to the Startup Investment and Community Capital Expo, and it's got a link over to the SICC website. So that tells us that that link is working. And then there are 4 more, which are single people, and I actually have no clue what 3 of those 4 websites are. edit.csumb.edu. Sounds like someone was busy editing the csumb.edu site, saw a mention of the SICC website and decided to click on it. GeraldineBlog.top, having a clue. Secure.helpscout.net, having a clue. Interestingly, skipdns.link, it came from, we recently, just a little over a week ago, moved this website from one hosting provider to another. And that referral actually came out of that process. Okay, so we know a little bit about what other sites are referring our site. That's good information. You know who your partners are out there. So when people get to our site, then we'd like to know what are they doing in there. And my little quip is with apologies to Tom Waits. I don't know if any of you are Tom Waits fans, but if you are, you'll know immediately what I mean by apologies to Tom Waits on what are they doing in there. All right. So now we're looking at behavior. We've done audience, we've looked at acquisition, and now we're looking at behavior. And this, again, we start with the overview. That's always a good place to start. And we can see the pattern of visits over the past month. You can see this is past 30 days is actually the view we're looking at here. And over those 30 days, there were 484 page views. Now, that could have been one person looking at 484 different pages, or it could have been 484 different people looking at one page. We don't know from this, but we know that there were 484 page views. There were 331 unique page views. What does unique mean? That means if I go to the website and I go to the landing page, the home page, and then I click inside and look at a couple of pages inside, and then I come back to the home page. The second time that I get to the home page, that adds to the page view numbers, but it is not a unique page view because I've been there before in that session. Right? The average time people spent on a page was 2 minutes and 36 seconds. So for each of those page views, the average time was 2 minutes and 36 seconds. The bounce rate, we've seen that before, was 72%. And the percent exit was 52%. I'm going to explain exit on a different report here. Exit's important to understand, but it's a little bit confusing, and this is not the report to show that, I don't think. Down here is an important report. It tells us what pages they're going to. So it lists the number of times that each of these pages was viewed. So 40% of the page views are our homepage. Not surprising. 11% are viewing Parallel Flight. Parallel Flight is a page within this site that shows one of the companies that is going to be pitching to investors at the expo. That company is Parallel Flight Technologies, really cool company. They do heavy lift drones. They can lift relatively heavy loads with their drones, and one of their applications is providing supplies to firefighters who are behind the fire line. Really cool business they've got. So that seems to be a very popular page. Pitching companies is a popular page. That's important because that's the page where we encourage companies to come and pitch at the event. So we want lots of folks to go and look at that page, and we're getting pretty good traffic there. And then, you know, each of the other pages goes there in descending order of how many times those pages were viewed. Okay. Now here's my favorite view to look at on a website. I love this view. It looks a little confusing at the beginning, but what this does is it tells us, so we're in behavior, and it tells us the behavior flow. It tells us the route that people took when they came to our site. So most people start on our site at the landing page. The little slash there says this is the home page. I should say home page, not landing page. I'm mixing my terminology. When they get there, a chunk of them, 21 of those, went on to the pitching companies page, and 8 of them went on to the sponsor SICC 2020 page, and 5 of them went on to the attend page, and 4 went back to the home page. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's coming from another. I was going to say, that's kind of weird. 3 of them went to Parallel Flight, 7 of them went to 6 other pages. And so these people that went to the pitching companies page, where did they go next? Well, 7 of them went on to whatever this page is, and I can't click on that page. Sorry, this is a blown up image of that, so you can see a little better. Because if this were live, when I mouse over this, it would give me more information about what pages these were. 3 of them went to the attend page, okay? And then of the 3 that went to the attend page, 2 of those went on to the sponsor page, and then this little red waterfall here says they left. So it looks very sad because we're sad because they left. So this tells you where people are going through your site, and it actually goes on. There are a couple of interactions beyond that. And where they go and where they go after they go there. and it gives you a sense of what that path looks like through your site. This I find incredibly useful because one of my objectives with a site is to keep people there and keep them looking at more and more stuff on the site. So this tells me whether I'm succeeding in that or not. Now, this report, behavior, we're looking at site content, and we're looking at a report called exit pages. And I want to come back to this because this tells us what pages are they leaving our website from. So somebody comes to a website, if they only look at one page and leave, what do we say they did? Everybody in chat, tell me what they did if they only look at one page and they leave. What does Google tell me they did?
Bounced.
They bounced, right? Exactly. So bouncing is different from exiting. If they bounced off a page, it doesn't count. But if they came to the home page and then they went to the pitching companies page and then they went to parallel flight page, and then when they got done with that page, then they left, parallel flight now gets counted for one exit. That was used by that visitor as the page that they exited from. So what this report tells us is what pages are people most often exiting from. Now, so the home page is the most common place that people leave from. Now remember, these aren't bounces. These are people who have looked at more than one page, but then they left, and 61% left. Actually, 61% of the people who got to the homepage, back to the homepage, left from there. 120. 23 sessions ended on pitching companies. Now, when I saw that initially, I had this thought that, oh, that's not a good thing because I want pitching companies to be where people sign up. And then I realized that the way we've constructed this site is if they go to the pitching companies page and they decide they want to sign up to pitch, the next thing they do is they click on a button that's on that page that takes them over to Eventbrite, which is where they actually sign up to pitch. They don't sign up on the site, they sign up on Eventbrite. So then I felt better about pitching companies being an exit page because it was actually designed to be an exit page for some. But this is important because it tells you what page people are leaving from. So we've gotten a lot of information here about how many people are on the site, about where they're coming from, and about what they're doing when they get to the site.